At the beginning of this marathon, I listed all of the elements, and as Ira said during book 2, they aren't 4 elements, they are 4 parts of a whole. In truth, it is through this principle that I realized that coffee is the 4 elements. You need water and dirty beans from the earth, fire to heat it up and air to see its steam. Perhaps this is why Ira drinks tea. Perhaps this is why I drink coffee, consuming the knowledge and wisdom surrounding me. So what does this have to do with book 3? As in not 3, the joke I made a few videos back. Forget about that joke, please. I think change is coffee. As in a whole concise experience that combines all the good elements of narrative better than all the other seasons. This is video 8 of a video series ranking and reviewing every season of Avatar. There's a playlist that you should check out for the rest of the videos, as some jokes might carry over from previous videos. And of course, this is a good time to remind you to subscribe, so do it. This is both critique and my opinion, but I urge you to comment if you want to. I read everything. A wise man once said, new growth cannot exist without first the destruction of the old. And so I ask any viewer who doesn't like this season to destroy their opinions about it during this video. Simply come back to them after the video and enter the void that is my content. I was gonna try and analyze this season like I did with the previous ones, talking about what we as the audience can learn from something that was done specifically better or worse in each book, but I know that I'd just be gushing out over every single thing that happens this season because it's amazing instead. So my approach here isn't a review of the season or an analysis of the writing and themes. Making advantage of the top concept, I think the best approach that will let me sound smart and also gush over this book will be to go about my main complaints with the previous season and show how this season does it better. For spot 7, making sense. Yeah, this one's pretty self-explanatory since it's such a huge mistake to make. And while not everyone is really going to complain about the decisions the characters make, aspiring storytellers kinda doubt every single thing the characters do to avoid them making any weird decisions. Maybe I'm too harsh on this aspect, but I do believe it's kinda the bare minimum a writer can do to create a good story. For spot 6, fight scenes and characters. This one is kinda heavy, but I think the fight scenes in this season tend to make a lot of sense. They're creative, well choreographed, and almost all of them have all the elements I talked about in the video for Aang's 3rd season. Such a visual improvement as well as an incredibly fun thing to watch. They always use the skills the characters have really well and as creatively as they did in Korra's 1st season. Therefore, we end up getting fights like the bike fight in episode 3, which is something that can only be done during Korra's time, or the fight with the Red Lotus versus the Metalbender town. Like, a fight where throwing a boulder is a viable strategy, or, well, need I mention Aang's children versus the Red Lotus? That fight is absolutely amazing. Everything is so fucking cool and well done. I would say this fight is one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen, period. Add to that, a lot of fights use really interesting camera angles that can be rather impressive at times given how many things are going on at the same time, and yet you can pay attention to multiple actions thanks to their use of clever animation techniques to roll in movement. Like, look at this fight with Zahir at the start. Notice how your eye is drawn towards the character doing the widest movement while only one of the characters is doing said widest movement. Even in this scene from far away, you can tell exactly what is going on and which character is doing what. This lasts just about a minute, but it's so awesome and very well made. As for the characters, well, even the background characters are awesome, like the mother who wants her son to be out of her house so bad that she's willing to do anything, or the Earth Queen being a constant asshole. Going into more minor characters, Kai and Opal both have great personalities, even if Opal is actually a little bland. Kai is annoying at first, but it's nice to see him take responsibilities with more seriousness as the season goes on. Tense's determination to secure the 8 nations' prosperity, or Lin's working too much issues, ironically, Korra's journeying into understanding her opponent while dealing with the loss of her past life's wisdom, and Zahir's absolute understanding of his ideals and goals. It really goes to show that most of these major arcs are great and never too overwhelming, although there are a few that are less than stellar. It's all very well balanced, and I don't mind the more stupid or silly ones, aka, Boulin's whole thing with Lavabending. You might be thinking, how are the fights in this book any different than the ones in the last? Since they have a similar style, but the main difference here is that these fights flow much nicer. Coupled with them not lasting 60 minutes at a time, it's also way more varied. For spot 5, thematic. Change! It's going on all over. The world now has spirits, new airbenders are surfacing, the quote I made earlier straight up refers to change. It's a thematic thing that is everywhere, especially through the fact that there is no more love triangles! Yeah! There's none of them! That's some good shit. It could be said that Sahir learned fly through accepting change quickly while Korra and the other airbenders learned it after a while, but there's probably a few holes in that statement. For spot 4, identity. Although this season takes an approach to progression that's extremely similar to the one in The Legend of Avatar, great job. Although this season takes an approach to progression that's extremely similar to the one in The Last Airbender, where the characters are constantly flying through the world and visiting different locations, I think the bending and characters are all different enough to stand on their own as a different thing entirely. There's not much reliance on Aang and the old Avatar team aside from Zuko coming back briefly. Besides that, comparing the writing, you can tell a lot of dialogue tried to stray away from the style Aang seasons were using while not losing its connection to them. It's a very delicate balance that was achieved somewhat nicely. For spot 4, world building and advancement. We're starting to get into the hard aspects to compare, so let's talk about the in-universe world and see how it's developed this season. First up, Republic City is practically non-important this season, instead showing us Ba Sing Se and the railway systems that connect the Air Kingdom cities. Other interesting location is Sao Fu, the Metalbending capital that provides a lot of technological advancements throughout Korra's story. But when it comes down to world building, I think this season caters the world of the Legend of Korra to accommodate Korra instead of Aang, and that's what makes it better. You see, during the first 3 seasons, Aang's purpose as the Avatar is to pacify and solve situations. This Avatar person is practically one of the main world leaders because they wield so much power that defying them would lead you into jail or even worse. Aang had to force himself into the workings of the world to solve its issues. However, Korra takes the opposite approach by showing the audience that the Avatar's purpose is being lost when confronted by the advancements of both technology and the socio-political status of different societies, and the antagonist in her story portrays this in a much better way. It's showing the problems of different political leadership standings. It's just Season 3 transitions this imperfectly because of its embracement of it without displaying it aggressively. Air shows the problems with democracy, 3 shows the problems with monarchy, Balance shows the problems of dictatorship, and Change shows the problems of anarchy, while all 4 of them inevitably show how the Avatar fits into this given its position as a mediator of sorts. The reason why everyone wants to kill the Avatar is made abundantly clear in this season with its world. It's against every single modernized method of organization, including no organization, and this extreme opposition to what the other 3 seasons attempt to demonstrate is what makes this such a strong message, one which you may have not noticed at all. For spot 2, pacing. As for the reason this season has domination over the previous position in this composition of written non-fiction about a fiction being ordered in succession for least sophistication to greater execution in greater fruition about the consummation of a creation, to achieve minimum duration, a goal and a simplification in relation to proper acceleration of several elements in perfection, resulting in a situation of greater diversion for the sake of recreation. And if you couldn't understand that, you can rewind, go round, or better, comprehend that I am simplifying while referring to the pacing being compelling and quite more fulfilling. No more need to dig into this one, I feel lazy after writing that. Just think that the Ba Sing Se portion last season feels really slow and long, and well, that pretty much shows, hey, that's a phasing issue, that's very clear. For spot 1, I kinda have to complain about the Red Lotus, so says the script. You heard right, that's not to say that season 3 is necessarily perfect, as a lot of characters like the Red Lotus tend to feel a little bit too bland. Like, sure, they want anarchy, but why? There is no backstory and sometimes no personality. The way of dealing with things is about the coolest thing they do. But there's also a huge contradiction between the way Sahir deals with the airbending ideology and the airbending nation. He shows so much admiration for the ideologies of the greatest benders whose main principles tend to be detachment to physical stuff and inner growth through introspective, to the point where he learns to fly, yet he plans to kill the airbending nation because he has to achieve his goal of killing the Avatar. It's a little off-putting, but it's nothing plot-bending. It simply shows a different side of a villain who is willing to do anything for his goals, although not the best way to do it. And that's practically how the season beats the shit out of the others. It's an amazing balance of several elements and the reason why I personally believe this season to be the best Avatar has in store for the viewers. I love how dark this season can get, with exploiting the head of one of the antagonists almost on screen and live choking of a bitch, which is just something I wanted to say to end this video since I couldn't fit it anywhere else. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See you in the outro video. Wow.